Good morning. I'm so happy to see you this morning. So it's the end of our series on the universe is calling, and today's talk is entitled "After Prayer, What?" And it's a really good question. After prayer, what? And I'm going to get into it in just a minute because there are some really specific things to do and some specific things not to do if you want that prayer to be demonstrated, if you want it to be fulfilled. So there was a Southern preacher, and he was going to go bear hunting. And so he went bear hunting by himself, and he actually found a bear, and startled the bear startled him, and he fell down the hill, the rifle one way, him the other way, 2 legs broken. So immediately went into prayer, and he said, "Dear God, please make this bear a Christian." And so the bear bowed down, got on his knees, and said, "Thank you, Father, for what I'm about to eat. I give thanks in Jesus' name." Prayer, prayer, prayer. Well, that isn't our kind of prayer. It isn't something that we do in emergencies, although we do it in emergencies also, but we don't have an idea of begging, beseeching, asking for, coaxing. But what we have rather is an idea of knowing, of connecting, of uniting with that thing that is life itself, that is divine mind, that is spirit, and knowing our oneness with that one, and then praying from that place. But there's still a good question after prayer. What? And so the first thing, when you've worked with a practitioner, raise your hands. How many of you have worked with a practitioner? Yay, look at that. Okay. So what you know when you work with a practitioner is that after the prayer, the practitioner usually sits in the silence with eyes closed after the completion of the prayer. There's a moment of really taking it in for your client. We do that for ourselves as well. After the prayer, we sit in this wonderful energy of oneness, of wholeness, of life, of God, and just relish it. A few months ago, I had a practitioner client, and she was so distraught when she came in, very, very worried about a family member. And when the prayer was over, she sat with her eyes closed. I sat for a couple of minutes. She sat for another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes, another 15 minutes. Finally, she opened her eyes. I had wondered if I'd put her to sleep, but no, I knew she was. She said, "It just feels so good. I don't want to leave. Just feels so good." Now, she'd come in so upset, so worried, so concerned. She left confident, peaceful. Now, after that prayer, and what I told her is all you need to do is think about God. Think about the peace you're feeling right now. Anytime you're tempted to go to the issue instead of the solution, instead of the good that we had decided together what she wanted. And so from that peaceful place, so there's number one. The first thing you do after prayer is stay in the prayer. As Kathy's wonderful affirmation said, stay tuned in and turned on. Stay connected with Source. Stay in the awareness of that presence. In the awareness of that presence. Really live your good. Live it unabashedly. As we say out loud, live it out loud. Fully, live fully. Yesterday, a number of us were at Dan Esparz's memorial service. Dan taught Reiki at our center in San Juan and nutrition and a few other things. And one of the things I always notice in a memorial service, and this wasn't any different, is that so many people didn't know him. So many people that were there had no clue that he was a Reiki master, that he was a healer and a spiritual teacher. They knew him from business. They knew him from other things. And I wonder about all of us, are you letting your light shine no matter where you are in your business? You're still you. Are you bringing the full light wherever you are so that people can see there's something wonderful going on in you. Of course, what it is God's love, God's grace, God's joy. But do you let people see it? And we sort of looked around the table at each other that it set up for food. And it was a very good question. How could someone not know? And then we thought, how many people do we work with or do we see at Starbucks or the grocery store that know what we do, who we are? And I think it's time after prayer, what? Let your light shine. Let it shine. So one of the things that I was most impressed, his 4 children all spoke. The first people that spoke after his sister. And they were so articulate about how good their dad was. So articulate and so filled with life. And the one who was most filled with life is one of his daughters is deaf, and so she signed her talk, and it was spoken that the interpreter was sitting right there, so she'd get everything. Her face was just like it was so expressive. We hardly needed the interpretation because you could see either joy or sadness or whatever she was talking about. You could see it on her face. You could certainly see the love and respect for her dad, who Skyped to her because she lived in Washington, D.C. for 11 years, and they live here in Orange County. So be expressive. Be expressive of the thing. So here's something. We used to say, treat and move your feet. Do spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. Then take action toward the fulfillment of that thing. That's what you do after prayer. You listen to your spiritual guidance and then you take action. You say yes to whatever is the intuition within you. Last night I was reading all these old magazines, Science Mind magazines, like in the 50s. And most of them have such great examples of fulfilled prayer and people giving their thanks. And one of them was a whole article I read. It was so great. It was a woman in England who acted on stage there in London. And her first name is June, and I was sure I would remember her last name, but I didn't. So it wasn't June Dixon, but it's June somebody. And she was saying she was an out-of-work actor, and she had the change in her pocket was all the money she had. Barely enough for fare to get home, 5 miles away from where she was. And her intuition said, go to the Interval, which was a place actors went to connect and relax. And her first thought was, yeah, okay. Intuition, as she said, is often just gentle. It's that gentle knowing, oh, I should do that. And then facts came into her mind. She went, but if I do that, I'll spend all my money, and then I'll have to walk home those 5 miles, and what will I do then? But she knew, she had that knowing, right? When she had the intuition, the right thing to do is go to the Interval. So she went to the Interval. She bought a cup of tea, which was spent all her money on a cup of tea. And she was sitting there drinking her tea, and there was no one that she knew there. And so she started to doubt her intuition. This is such a great story for all of us. She started to doubt her intuition. And something inside her just, hang on, wait a while. Wait a while. So she sat there for about half an hour or so. And then an acquaintance of hers came in and sat with her and said, by the way, would you be willing to do some work? She just, ears perked up. It didn't matter what kind of work. Yes, I will do it. I didn't say I'm broke, but I really would like to work for money. And it wasn't an acting job, even though this was a place where it was a job stuffing envelopes. But it was a paying job. So she went to the company the next day, got the job, and while there was talking with another woman who said, oh, by the way, there are auditions for this play coming up this week. Since we wouldn't be trying out for the same part because the other woman was much older than she, Why don't we go together? They went, they both landed the job. It was a year on stage, a year's worth of work because she listened to her intuition. She didn't listen to her intellect, her reason. She listened to her heart saying, go to the interval. So, where in your life are you saying no to your intuition? Because after prayer, you must listen to that intuition, the voice for God within you that knows you intimately as it knows itself, wants only the best for you because you are its expression of love. You are love. And you are cherished and adored by this one that only wants the best for you. And the only way it can communicate with you is through your own mind, through your own intuition, not through your reason, through your intuition. So after prayer, listen to the voice of God within you and take action. Take action. So she didn't just hear it. She spent that last bit of change she had on tea and sat, not knowing what was going to happen. You have to be willing to be in the mystery for a moment, right? As you're moving from one foot to the other, from one place to another, there's a part that you don't know. But one of the things you do know, back to the prayer itself, all is well, for all is God. Right now, all is well. Right now, you're filled with the awareness of good, the awareness of God. The act as if means that if you are praying for prosperity, do something prosperous. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I wrote in my blog that Edwin Gaines has this great story of how she brought these olives stuffed with almonds. And she just thought that was the most extravagant thing she had ever heard of in her life. Probably cost $1.25. But it was more than was her food budget. But her whole food budget was more than that. But she didn't have a food budget for extravagant things like that. So doing something rich doesn't mean spending a lot of money. And being in integrity with yourself doesn't mean spending money you don't have. So if you're praying for well-being, for health, then do something that shows the universe you believe you're healthy. Take a walk, right? Do some gentle exercises. Do something that says to the universe, I'm a healthy person. I believe in health and wholeness. If you've been praying for a connection, for love, for relationship, then be a friend. Give your love somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be that significant someone that you're searching for, but it could be. Who knows? It could be. In this rereading of all these old Science of Mind magazines, I realized what wonderful gifts we've been given by Ernest Holmes and the great teachers that remind us, like Eric Butterworth, who wrote this book, remind us that the truth is very simple. It's very simple. God is all there is. Put your mind on God, and your life will improve. That's it. Oh, there's some variations of that, but that's the basics of it right there. God is everywhere present. So anytime you're criticizing yourself or anyone else, then you're out of alignment. Yesterday, I found out a friend of mine was having surgery this morning, and my inner being was a little concerned. So I went out immediately, even though I had to drive to San Clemente from Laguna Niguel, because it's where I know there's a card shop, to buy a card saying, I know that you're recovering well. I know that this is an easy recovery. Do you understand? I did it for me. I did it for me to train my mind to expect well-being. to expect success. You can take action like that. What is it that you're praying for that hasn't started showing up? Then the fourth thing is be like a farmer, a gardener. It's ironic that I talk about gardening. But anyway, I have people who help me do it. And I have nephews who are farmers. But when they get ready, they till that soil. They make sure that the soil is ready for the seed to be planted. So after prayer, what? More prayer. Go back. Till that seed, that soil, so you can plant another seed. But the other thing about gardening and plants, the first sprouts don't look like the tomato plant. There's no tomatoes on them. And if you were unwise, you would dig it up and say, but I wanted tomatoes. You have to allow the sprouts and nurture the sprouts so it can become a full-grown plant. How do you apply that to your own life? Because if you're praying for prosperity and you find a dime in the ground, don't walk by it. Pick it up and be grateful, because there's your demonstration. It's just a sprout, but it's something. If you're praying for well-being and you have a day where you have just a little more energy than you did the day before, be grateful. Be grateful. So you're keeping in mind the thing that you're praying for. From the time of the first prayer, Ernest Holmes tells us that there's a tendency in people who don't understand the law of mind to dig up that seed that's planted. And even some of us, when we're emotionally involved with something, will dig up the seed. Dig it up with a word such as, I hope that happens. Well, if you're hoping it happens, then you're not knowing that it's happening, right? So you're digging it up with that. If you're looking for it and if you're feeling discouraged, you're digging it up. For everything, there is a gestation period, right? There's a gestation period. You don't just have the baby the instant you know you're pregnant. You don't just have that tomato plant the instant you planted the seed. There's a time of invisibility, and yet something underneath knows something's happening. And I bet you every mother in here knew well before anyone else could see that she was pregnant, knew that life was growing. So hold fast to whatever that dream is. There are things to do after prayer that will help you, and there are things not to do. The not to do is the doubt, the discouragement, the digging it up. The to do is to stay in that peace of mind, to stay in that place of living fully, of acting as if, of moving your feet. God is good all the time, 24/7, 365, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pray for all of us right now, and Diane's going to get us into the awareness of prayer. And I'm going to take all of the things that I think might be on people's hearts or minds and include all of them in this prayer. In the silence, there is a sacred place, a secret meeting place. Love is there. In the silence, where every color blends,
silence. Your path is paved in gold, and all your dreams unfold. Love is here, peace is here, truth is here, God is here.
In the awareness that there is only God and nothing else, I speak this word for each person here, each person listening. I speak it in the first person, personalizing it for each one. What I know is that there is in this God, there is only good. There is only love. There is only abundance. There is only peace of mind. There is only connection. There is only creativity. So what I know that God moves through me as the creative process, that everything I say, I do, I make, I choose, I decide comes directly from that connected place of God within, the place that God is all in me. The sacred heart, the secret place of the Most High, is that birthplace of the creative process. So I say yes to my own creativity. I appreciate myself more than ever before. And therefore, I see the creative gifts that others bring with more awareness, with more gratitude. I speak this word for prosperity, that I live in an abundant universe where I can't even conceive the grains of sand on all of the beaches just on this planet, that this is an abundant life, and that God is abundance itself, moving through me as an expanded awareness of sufficiency, as supply, as enoughness, as moreness, of generosity. For I am that giver that I am as God in me. And furthermore, I speak this word for perfect wholeness, for a life that is vital and full and complete in absolute every way, that the vitality, the energy, the aliveness of life itself flows through me right here, right now, as energy. I know that every cell of my body is filled with God's presence. There is perfect circulation, perfect assimilation, perfect elimination. This body temple is cleansed moment by moment. And the breath is such a good reminder of circulation. I cannot just breathe in, but I must breathe out. And by doing so, I contribute. I know that I am here to make a difference, that I contribute in everything I do in my beingness. I speak this word for self-love, self-acceptance, self-approval. For until we understand the self is sacred, I cannot really love another. So I accept myself in a greater, holier, more wholesome way than ever before. Warts and wonders, just the way I am and just the way I am not. I speak this word for the good, the grace of God, for friends and love and connection. I speak this word that every being who is looking for love is expressing love. I speak that for myself and for all others. I speak this word for this center, that we are here to make a difference to our community, and we do so. For all of this and so much more, I am so very grateful with my heart filled with gratitude, I simply place this word in the fertile soil of divine mind. It is complete. And please help me by saying, and so it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Heather.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And please welcome Melissa Suzanne.
Speaking of fertile soil, I just recently found out we are having a second baby. And I just wanted to share an example of a demonstration that reminded me during the talk. I have a 2-year-old daughter, Serenity, and we walk to the park every day, at least 100 times we've gone. And on the way back, the morning I found out I was pregnant, on the way back, almost as we were home, I see a greeting card on the floor, on the sidewalk, in the middle of an area where there are no people. This is just a road. And it said, "Congratulations." And it was blank. On the inside, it said, "How wonderful for you." And it wasn't written to anyone else. So I looked around, made sure and looked around. There's nobody there. And I said, hey, I guess this is meant for me. What are the odds that the morning I would find out there would happen to be a congratulations card? There's never been so much as a piece of paper on the route we've taken at least 100 times. And that, to me, was a perfect example of a demonstration that even surprised me. I quickly took a picture and sent it to my husband. So when we are open to it and aware of it, you know, we do see these demonstrations all of the time. And